Welcome back, Brilliant Scholars. So I'm taking you through this essay, and we are going to be talking about main body paragraph number 2. So main idea number 2. When we look at our controlling idea, our main body paragraph number 2 should be about functioning effectively in the face of fear. And in the last video, I discussed how this transition sentence transitions us. I'm going to do a light blue. Nope, not text color. Highlight color. How this transitions us to our next thought. And our next thought is going to be about functioning effectively in the face of fear. Now, that's part of the definition of courage, but I also have to connect it to leadership because I have to remember that this essay is about how my character trait that I've chosen has to do with leadership. So, I'm going to say having the courage to function effectively even when faced with fear is a sign of leadership. No, I'm going to say a sign of great leadership. Now, what can I say about fear? Because, I need to talk about fear since that's what this first sentence discusses, and I want everything to be cohesive and flow. So I might say something like, in life, there are times we are faced with fear. Fear is an inevitable part of life. But in some ways, I just kind of repeated myself there. I realized that. So instead of saying in life there are times we are faced with fear and then repeating myself in a different way, saying fear is an inevitable part of life, I'm simply going to just say fear is an inevitable part of life. And I'm going to say leaders face those fears head on with courage. Now, I have to think of an example that's going to support what I've just said. And I might be struggling a little bit to think of one because I've already used a pretty good one in my first paragraph about Martin Luther King, and I kind of want to keep that goodness going. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to review the different types of supporting details that I could use. So I'm going to look through these different slides. I don't want to know about the different do nots of examples. I want to know about the examples. So I have a personal example, I I have a pop culture reference and all the different types of pop culture references. I have historical examples. I've already used my historical example with Martin Luther King because that was a historical reference. So maybe I'll use this personal example. And the personal example is a story from my own life or from the life of someone I know. So let me think. What's a personal example I could use that would support what I'm saying about functioning effectively in the face of fear? Oh, I know. I actually have a story about this. So I'm going to use this story. And I want to use a transition word for my example, but I don't want to use the same transition word that I used up here. This is another transition word. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight this. So this is a transition word. I don't want to use that same one that I used because that would become a little redundant and boring. So I'm going to go back to an assignment that I was given or that I gave to you all, and I'm going to look at the different transition words that I could possibly use. And here's the box for citing an example. So I already said, for example. In other words is not going to work here because I haven't really said anything as of yet. In fact is not going to work here. But I see this for instance. So I think that this might work. So I'm going to use for instance here. So I'm going to highlight this so y'all know. For instance, comma, end the highlight. One time I had a couple friends over. One of my friends, Jordan, suddenly became very pale and looked as though he was going to pass out. My best friend, Bailey, began freaking out and crying. However, that's another transition word. If I look at it, making a contrast. I'm making a contrast here to Bailey. I'm not freaking out. She was, but I'm not. So in contrast to her, however, I immediately took action. I turned the fan on as I noticed Jordan was sweating and clammy. These are descriptions of how Jordan was. I then went and made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for him. As soon as he ate, the color began to return to his face. He suffered from a low blood sugar attack. Although, another transition word, the situation was scary, I functioned effectively when faced with fear. I'm bringing it back home. I'm bringing it back to this idea. I want them to understand how my example connects to my reason here that I'm trying to prove. So I brought it back by using some of the same language. If I didn't have courage, another way I'm bringing it back, I'm showing the need for courage in this situation. The story may have wound up differently. I acted as a leader that night. Now I want to end it, and I need to find a way to transition to my next thought, to my next reason. And what's my next reason? Having the ability to face opposition head on. Leaders need to have the ability to face the opposition head on. So I'm going to say, not only, I'm going to say leaders not only have to face fear, but opposition as well. So I've kind of ended the fact that leaders have to face fear, but I'm moving my reader forward to my next thought in the fact that I'm going to be talking about opposition next. So I'm going to highlight this, showing that it's connecting to my controlling idea. I'm going to highlight this as another transition, and I will see you in the next video for our main body paragraph number 3, main reason number 3. Thank you.